Welcome to Doctoring the Truth, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on healthcare gone wrong. I'm your host, Jenna Tennell, and with me is my delightful co-host, Amanda House. We're two doctors of audiology here to bring you inside real-life cases where once trusted healthcare providers veered off the ethical path into criminal territory. Amanda!
Jenna. If you saw me frantically grabbing for my microphone as I was like, what am I missing? My hands are empty.
How the hecky darn are you, my friend?
I am so good. I'm always good. I'm on summer break.
So good.
Baby.
Bum, 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 bum.
Summer break.
Little James Brown. Ba-na-na-na-na-na. You wish you could be like Amanda right now.
Na-na-na-na.
So good. So
Ow!
good. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. Woo! Yeah, we're a little off the rails already, but hey, welcome.
Hi, how are ya?
I'm just going to put it out there right now. We have hail, we have thunder, and we also have a little PTSD because I thought all I had to worry about were bears in my backyard. But last night, not only do they not have sirens, so you have to listen to your phone, but this tornado decided to drop down, within about 7 miles of my house last night. And as the sirens on my phone were going off, take cover, I was like, I guess I've never really thought about this. This little rental place is a rambler. That's all one floor. Lots of windows.
Where do you go?
Even in the bathroom above the bathtub. Where does one go? So then I remembered, I saw a little trapdoor in the kitchen area. So I pull said trapdoor up, and the sky's green outside and it's black at 8 o'clock at night. And, it's normally light till 10. I'm thinking, all right, I don't know how much time I have. Let's see if we're going to go down here. And I pull this trapdoor out and I look down and it's black. It's pitch black.
Nope.
And there's a rickety ladder, and I don't know if there's a light, and I'm pretty sure it's mud down there, and I don't know about if there's dead bodies. And I apologize if my landlady is listening to this, but I listened to far too much true crime to be able to unwittingly go into a heretofore unexplored crawl space. Instead, I decided I'm going to just, take my bets with the tornado. And I put the thing back on, and I got in the bathtub, even though there was a window above the bathtub. And I read somewhere you're supposed to put a pot on your head, like as a helmet, in case something falls on you, right? So I get out of the bathtub, I go to my pots and pans. And because I don't have my normal crockery here, I didn't have a pot big enough for my gargantuan head. So I had no helmet. I had a tiny little pot that, I used for noodles and rice, and it didn't fit on my big crown, my big cranium. So I just sat in the bathtub and thought, all right, well, we'll see what happens. Lo and behold, it did touch down, but thankfully not in my area, but very, very close. And it devastated a lot of property, a lot of boats, a lot of houses and sheds, injured 2 people who were in the hospital, but hopefully they're expected to survive. So that's my exciting news from yesterday. But yet tonight we have the same weather pattern set up. We have a black sky, we have hail, and the sky is looking greenish. So if I have to abruptly leave, Amanda's going to take over while I try to cram a too small pot on my head in the bathtub.
I was going to say, if Jenna has to go sit in the tub with the pot on her head, we're just going to keep on going. And sorry, you guys will just be stuck with me.
Maybe forever if the tornado gets me.
Actually, you guys, I don't know how to edit. So I think that would be the end of us.
That would be the end of all of us. Oh, no, we can't do that. All right. Well, I promise I'll do my best to survive and maybe just get a bigger pot to bring up north.
Birthday idea.
Oh, bless.
Well, let's get into it then. I don't think there are any corrections from last week. I did say that I was going to reach out to an ophthalmologist about if the iris gives away any indications of projected health issues. I still have to do that. So sorry.
Girl, you got time. That'll be interesting no matter when you bring it up.
And then I also said that I was going to look up the stats of preeclampsia fatalities. Not last episode, but the one before. And I still haven't done that either. So bad student award goes to me.
No.
And
good podcaster award with a busy mama. Sidebar.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys, my child doesn't nap, so limited on the time. Like, he's very enjoyable, happy. But I'm saying, like, he doesn't nap. So, anyway.
You can't get your stuff done in the middle of the day. Yeah, there's no catch-up time.
Everyone's like, how's maternity leave? I'm like, what are you talking about? So busy. Ugh. Okay, so that brings us to sponsor numero uno, Cheeky. Cheeky mouth guards for y'all that grind your teeth. You need to go to getcheeky.com. Stop that grinding, stop the clenching, get yourself a custom night guard from Cheeky at a fraction of the cost of a traditional dentist. It's easy, affordable, guaranteed. You can smile, sleep, and repeat. Cheeky offers affordable custom night guards delivered to your doorstep at a fraction of the cost. Did I say it? I said it. Now it's underlined. Our easy-to-use impression kit captures your bite from the comfort of your home, ensuring a dentist-quality night guard tailored to your teeth. Cheeky night guards protect teeth from grinding by absorbing the forces of grinding, preventing headaches, jaw pain, and chipped teeth, because ain't nobody got time for that, while promoting healthier gums and a more confident smile. They have free shipping and a 100% money-back guarantee. Honestly, they're just the perfect solution for teeth grinding or clenching. Try it risk-free and join the thousands who choose Cheeky to solve their grinding and clenching problems. Do not delay! Exclusive deal is limited. So visit getcheeky.com and use our promo code STAYSUSPICIOUS for 30% off your order today. Go do it.
30%?
Push pause. Go 30%. Do it right now. Wow. Oh, shoot. You know how I was like, I'm going to work on my trigger warnings. Yeah, I have that blank.
That's what I thought you were going to say in the correction section.
Nope. I just stumbled upon that one here.
I would just skip it then. You don't even need to talk about it.
You know what, folks? No triggers again. Sorry.
I can take it out.
No.
I can take this out.
It's fine.
No? Leave it in?
Yeah, I don't care. Okay, so that brings us to our story, shall we?
We shall.
Okay, great. Okay. It's 3 a.m. in the ICU at Mount Carmel West Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. The hallways are quiet, that particular kind of quiet in the hospital that isn't really quiet at all. It's just muted by exhaustion and resignation. Behind a curtain in one of the ICU bays, a family keeps a vigil. A wife and a grown son. They've been there for hours, sitting in the hard plastic chairs under those horrible fluorescent lights, watching a man that they love breathe through a machine. The patient is only 39 years old. He came in with trouble breathing. Nothing that seemed catastrophic, just an ambulance ride and an ER visit, but then came the cardiac events, one after another, and now he's on a ventilator in the ICU, and the family is waiting for someone to tell them what happens next. A doctor arrives. He's tall, athletic, good-looking. He's a former basketball captain who trained at the Cleveland Clinic, which is arguably one of the best programs in the country. And the nurses adore him. In fact, he won their award for best physician in the hospital. He is calm and confident and speaks to the family with what feels like compassion. He tells them their loved one is brain dead and that his organs are failing, that there's nothing more that they can do. He suggests medication to make the patient comfortable, to ease the passing. He'll go quickly, the doctor says. The family nods in agreement. I mean, what else can they do? They trust the man in the white coat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
A nurse
This
retrieves
is so dark.
a syringe from the Pyxis. She doesn't call the pharmacist. She just uses the override to gain access. The doctor has given a verbal order, after all, and what's she going to tell him now? 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl. 1,000 micrograms. That is 10 times the normal dose for comfort care and 20 times what the hospital's own guidelines recommend.
Whoa.
The syringe goes into the IV line within minutes. The patient stops breathing. The monitor flatlines, and the family weeps. The doctor offers condolences, and the death certificate will say natural causes, and the word fentanyl will not appear. And then it happens again and again and again and again.
Unconscionable.
35 patients, all dead, under the care of one doctor, all after receiving doses of fentanyl so massive that a prosecution expert would later say they were enough to kill an elephant. For 5 years, no one stopped him. Not the nurses who drew up the syringes, not the pharmacists who saw the orders, and not the hospital administrators who were supposed to be watching. 5 years and 35 deaths. One doctor with whom everyone should have stayed suspicious. And this is the story of the fentanyl murders of Dr. William Husel.
Oh, what a guy. This is horrific.
He's really charismatic, though. He was the basketball captain, Jenna.
Man.
William Scott Husel was born on November 11th, 1975, and grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, a city of steel mills and Catholic parishes where hard work and ambition could springboard you into a bright future. He attended St. Ignatius High School, a Jesuit preparatory school on the west side of the city, known for its rigorous academics and powerhouse athletics. Husel thrived there. He was smart and athletic, and by his senior year, he was captain of the basketball team. He was a true leader and a competitor, the kind of kid that people noticed. He graduated in 1994, and it seemed like the world was waiting for him. But the world William Husel first stepped into after high school was not a lecture hall or a basketball court, it was a courtroom. In the fall of 1994, barely weeks into his freshman year at Wheeling Jesuit College in West Virginia, Husel built a pipe bomb.
What?
He detonated it near the campus health and recreation center, destroying a trash can. Then he and a classmate tried to frame another student for the incident. They were caught, and Husel was charged with malicious damage by explosive device, possession of an unregistered explosive device, and unlawful manufacture of an explosive device. He was sentenced to 6 months in a community confinement center and 1 year of supervised release. It was a bizarre and rather alarming episode, the kind of thing that would resurface years later when people were searching for early warning signs of something darker. But at the time, it was treated as a youthful mistake, just a detour, not a destination for him.
I mean, this is a whole bouquet of red flags, just saying. Holy smokes.
With a red ribbon.
Wow.
Yeah. So after his legal troubles, Husel transferred to Ohio State University, where he earned a degree in microbiology in 2000. He then enrolled at the Ohio University College of Osteopathic Medicine, graduating in 2008 with a DO, which, as probably most of us know, is a doctor of osteopathic medicine. And those who don't know, a DO is a fully licensed physician with the same legal authority as an MD. Then came the crown jewel, a residency and fellowship in critical care medicine at the Cleveland Clinic, which is, again, one of the most prestigious medical training programs in the United States. He would spend 5 years at the Cleveland Clinic. 5 years of intense training in the most demanding environment in medicine, the ICU, where life and death intersect every hour of every day. The Cleveland Clinic would later conduct an internal review of Husel's time there. They found no concerns, no complaints, no red flags, not a bouquet of them, and he was, by all accounts, an exemplary trainee. In 2013, Husel took his first independent physician position when he was hired as an intensivist at Mount Carmel West Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. So this was a Catholic hospital in the working-class Franklinton neighborhood, which was founded in 1886 by the Sisters of the Holy Cross. Husel was assigned to the overnight shift in the ICU, and as we know, the overnight shifts are the hours when the hospital's administrative infrastructure goes home, when the daytime supervisors that typically govern physicians' conduct are gone. And during those night hours, he was the sole physician in the unit, making life and death decisions in the wee hours of the morning with minimal oversight. And by all accounts, he was extraordinary at it. As I mentioned before, the nurses absolutely loved him. He was described as cool and good-looking with big muscles. A doctor who actually listened, who taught them, who treated them like colleagues rather than peons. Former nurses put it simply, quote, "He cares for his patients, and I love him because he is an amazing doctor," end quote. In 2014, just 1 year into his career, Husel received the Physician Recognition Award, which is voted on by the nursing staff as the hospital's top physician. By 2018, he was being considered for the same award again. So, very charismatic guy.
Obviously, yeah.
Mm-hmm. In October 2017, Husel married Mariah Baird, a registered nurse who worked alongside him. She would later describe him with the same reverence as his other colleagues, saying he was really good at what he did. The couple together had 3 children, and to the outside world, William Husel had completed one of the great American redemption arcs. A troubled kid from Cleveland who built a pipe bomb in college had remade himself into a decorated and respected physician, a devoted husband, and a great dad. He earned the trust of the nurses, his patients, and their families. But there was something happening on that overnight shift. Something that wouldn't come to light for 5 years, and something that would turn the Physician Recognition Award winner into a defendant facing 25 counts of murder.
Wow.
So, what exactly was happening in the ICU, you may be wondering? To understand what William Husel is accused of doing, we must first understand a medical procedure called palliative extubating, which is the removal of the breathing tube and discontinuation of mechanical ventilation. It is one of the most emotionally charged moments in all of medicine. However, the primary goal is to alleviate suffering, optimize comfort, and allow underlying terminal diseases to follow their natural course. So before the tube comes out, doctors routinely administer opioids, which typically fentanyl, and sometimes sedatives to prevent the patient from experiencing pain or the terrifying sensation of air hunger, which is the feeling of suffocating. It is also done to spare the families the anguish of watching their loved one gasp and struggle after the tube is removed. So this is standard, accepted, compassionate medicine. Every ICU in America does it. The question is, how much? Mount Carmel's own clinical guidelines in 2016 recommended 50 to 100 micrograms of fentanyl for pain relief during palliative extubation. And by 2018, the guidelines had actually been reduced to 25 to 50 micrograms. The DEA considers 2,000 micrograms of fentanyl, or 2 milligrams, a potentially lethal dose for someone who has not developed opioid tolerance. Fentanyl is approximately 100 times more potent than morphine. Beginning in 2015, William Husel started ordering fentanyl doses that bore no resemblance to those guidelines. He would order 500 micrograms, 800, 1,000, 2,000 micrograms. These doses were 5 to 25 times the standard dose and often administered as a single bolus, which is just one massive push of the med, just before or during the removal of a breathing tube. And he didn't stop it at fentanyl. He frequently combined it with other powerful drugs like Dilaudid and midazolam. In the case of one 39-year-old patient, Ryan Hayes, Husel ordered 2,000 micrograms of fentanyl plus 10 milligrams of Dilaudid plus 2 milligrams of midazolam, all at once. So, again, 2,000 micrograms is 25 times the normal dose, and then combined with those other 2 drugs that suppress breathing, I mean, come on, all given to a man who's 39 years old. A prosecutor would later call these doses astounding and mind-boggling, and another said they were enough to kill an elephant.
And he was so young.
I know. So how does a doctor order doses this far out of the normal range without anyone stepping in to stop him? And the answer lies, of course, as it most typically does, in the systematic failures that Husel exploited or simply operated within. So there were two, and the first was a verbal order. Standard hospital protocol requires physicians to enter medication orders into the electronic health record, where they are reviewed by a pharmacist before the medication is dispensed. This is the safety net. It's designed to catch errors and to catch exactly what Husel was doing. But Husel routinely gave verbal orders directly at the bedside to the nurse. So no electronic record, no pharmacist review, just a doctor saying a number and the nurse writing it down. So the second was the Pyxis machine. And we've talked about this before, but a Pyxis is an automated drug dispensing cabinet that you can find in every hospital. And the Pyxis system has an override function that's designed for genuine emergencies when a patient needs medication immediately and there isn't time to wait for pharmacist approval. So Husel and the nurses on duty use this override routinely, but not for emergencies. It was for every palliative extubation dose. The override bypassed every layer of pharmaceutical oversight, and here is the detail that makes the pattern undeniable. Mount Carmel's own internal investigation would later find that William Husel was the only physician in the entire system ordering fentanyl doses of 500 micrograms or more. Not one of a few, not an outlier among peers. He was the only one for 5 years. And every single one of those patients in the criminal case died within 30 minutes of the fentanyl orders being administered. So numbers are easy to talk about, right? There was 35 patients, 28 potentially lethal doses, 14 murder charges. Our minds can absorb what a large-scale tragedy this was, but let's do what numbers cannot, which is our favorite thing, and let's talk about some of the people. James George Allen was 44 years old when he suffered a heart attack and was subsequently put on a ventilator at Mount Carmel West. His family firmly believed that he had stabilized. His son could squeeze his hand and feel his father squeeze back, so they held hope that he would come home. The fragile, fierce kind of hope that families cling to in the hospital waiting rooms, that he would return to his wife, to his life, and to his tomato garden.
Aww.
That night, the night shift began, and Dr. Husel appeared. He told the family that Allen was suffering from total organ failure and suggested comfort medication. He said Allen would go quickly once they withdrew the ventilator. Allen's daughter, Lisa Coleman, would later tell the New York Times, "We felt like we had no other option. They never mentioned anything about a lethal dose." James Allen died on May 28, 2018, at only 44 years old. Troy Allison was also 44 years old. He was a diabetic who had never, according to his wife, Chris, had trouble breathing before. One night in the summer of 2018, he couldn't catch his breath. He asked Chris to call an ambulance. And if Troy's anything like my husband, if you're asking for an ambulance, we gotta go. Yep. The paramedics said that his blood sugar was slightly elevated and took him to Mount Carmel West as a precaution. While in the emergency room, Troy had multiple cardiac events and subsequently moved to the ICU. Dr. Husel told Chris that her husband was brain dead and that his organs were failing. He suggested medication to make Troy comfortable. Troy Allison then received 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl, and he was dead before his wife left the room. Months later, Chris received a phone call from the hospital telling her that her husband's death had been an overdose. She later told CNN, "It just wasn't adding up. They said they were going to give him something to make him comfortable. Fine, give him something. He didn't say, 'I'm going to give him 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl and he'll be gone before you leave the room.' That would have been a different conversation," she said. Troy Allison was one of at least 5 patients whose condition at the hospital later acknowledged could have potentially improved with additional medical care, and he might have gone home.
What a tragedy.
Jan Thomas was 65 years old when she died at Mount Carmel West, which I'm just going to start calling MCW because I can, because it's our podcast, in March 2015. She received 800 micrograms of fentanyl, and her family was not told about the overdose until 3 years later. So 3 years of believing natural causes. And her case was among 11 charges that were eventually, unfortunately, dismissed before trial because prosecutor would decide that doses under 1,000 micrograms would be harder to prove as intentional murder. Her son, Sean Thomas, reacted with raw anguish, saying, "Every time this is covered, she dies again. Every time her name flashes in the story, she dies all over again. To hear 11 of these cases dismissed, she's dying all over again."
I just feel his pain in that quote.
I know. Yeah. Ryan Hayes, 39 years old. He was found unresponsive by his sister Lisa and was taken to MCW after suffering cardiac arrest, where he was stabilized. And then, a few days later, he was suddenly dead. The record showed what killed him: 2,000 micrograms of fentanyl, 10 milligrams of Dilaudid, and 2 milligrams of midazolam, a cocktail of respiratory depressants so powerful that his pretrial attorney, Terry Hummel, said it simply: he got substantially more than what should ever be given. 2,000 micrograms, that is the maximum dose the DEA considers potentially lethal for someone with no opioid tolerance. And Hussel gave it to a 39-year-old man and added, well, why not 2 more drugs on top of it? Donald McClung was 58. His condition had deteriorated at MCW, and he died on September 18, 2018. His family received the single largest individual settlement in the case of $4,650,000. Hussel was not criminally charged in McClung's death because his doses fell below the 500 microgram threshold that the prosecutors used, and that we'll touch on later, but the civil system delivered its own verdict, leading to the large settlement. Joanna Belisari was 69. She had COPD, chronic kidney disease, and suffered septic shock, and she also had suspected lung malignancies. But at the trial, prosecution expert Dr. E. Wesley Ely of Vanderbilt University, one of the most respected voices in critical care medicine, testified that Belisari's, quote, care was certainly not at the point where I would describe her as imminently terminal or further options futile, end quote. He said he would have continued to support her to see if her condition could improve. She received 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl and did not get that chance to see if her condition would improve. Rebecca Walls was 75 when she died on November 19, 2018, and her death would prove to be the tipping point. It was her case that prompted MCW to broaden its internal investigation from a preliminary inquiry into a full-scale review. Her family would eventually receive a $4,350,000 settlement, but no amount of money answers the questions her family has carried ever since. Was her death necessary? MCW's own internal investigation found that at least 5 of the 35 patients had not yet exhausted life-saving measures at the time of extubation. That means that they were not necessarily dying, and some may have realistic chances of recovery. They were sick, yes. They were in the ICU, yes, but they were not beyond help. And yet, one by one, they received doses of fentanyl that no other physician in the entire hospital system was ordering, and one by one they died within minutes, and one by one their deaths were recorded as natural until someone finally spoke up.
Oh.
But before we get more into that, it's time for a chart
note. Chart note.
Welcome to the chart note segment, where we learn about what's happening in medicine and healthcare. For decades, diseases like Parkinson's and heart failure have shared a frustrating reality. Medicine could slow their progression and manage symptoms, but it couldn't repair the damage causing the disease. And now Japan is taking a major step towards changing that. Japan has become the first country to approve a stem cell-based treatment for both Parkinson's disease and severe heart failure. These therapies received what's known as conditional approval, meaning they can be used in patients while researchers continue collecting data on their long-term safety and effectiveness. The Parkinson's treatment uses induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs, which are adult cells that are reprogrammed into a stem cell-like state and then transformed into a dopamine-producing neuron. Those new neurons are transplanted into the brain with the goal of replacing the cells lost to Parkinson's disease and restoring dopamine production, potentially addressing the underlying cause of the condition rather than simply treating its symptoms. For patients with severe heart failure, the second therapy uses sheets of lab-grown heart muscle cells that are placed directly onto the heart. Researchers hope these cells will help repair damaged tissue, encourage the growth of new blood vessels, and improve the heart's ability to pump blood. And while the science is incredibly promising, these approvals come with an important caveat. Both treatments were approved after relatively small clinical trials, and many questions remain about how well they will work over the long term. Japan's regulatory system allows promising regenerative therapies to or to reach patients sooner than many other countries, but the treatments will continue to be closely monitored as additional data is collected. Whether these therapies ultimately fulfill their promise remains to be seen, but they represent a significant milestone in regenerative medicine. Rather than simply slowing disease progression, researchers are now exploring the possibility of replacing damaged cells and restoring function, an approach that could one day transform the treatment of many degenerative diseases.
Exciting.
Woo woo! Okay, back to the story. A pharmacist working the night shift at MCW filed a formal internal report in October 2018. The details were straightforward, stating that a physician in the ICU is ordering fentanyl doses that are wildly outside of the normal range, and that no pharmacological sense for comfort care. Doses that, in the pharmacist's professional judgment, are dangerous. This was not the first time the pharmacist had noticed. Talon Schroyer, one of the hospital pharmacists, would later testify about an earlier encounter with Husel. Quote, I asked something to the effect of, hey doc, I got this order for fentanyl here. Did you add an extra zero or something? And he said, nope, we're doing a procedure up here. That's what I ordered. So I said, okay, and I hung up and verified the order, end quote. Another pharmacist, Gregory Dressbach, testified he thought it was a clerical error the first time he saw a 1,000 microgram fentanyl order from Husel. Even beyond that, Dressbach said, I was concerned about the fact that people were overriding at one time such high doses, and then on top of it, one person was removing them and another person was apparently giving them. When he questioned an order, he received no explanation, but the drug was given anyway after he rejected it. The nurses simply overrode the Pyxis machine. So the pharmacist's report on October 25th should have been a 5-alarm fire, but it wasn't. The report received was not investigated seriously, and because of that, more patients died. Between October 25th, when that 5-alarm fire was raised, and November 21st, when Husel was finally removed from patient care, though there were 3 additional patients that died because of receiving Husel's fentanyl orders. Those 3 people might be alive today if the hospital had acted on the report with the urgency it demanded. On October 19th, the death of Rebecca Walls and the abnormally high dose in her case triggered a second formal report. The following day, patient Melissa Penix died, and her case reportedly prompted the hospital's full investigation. So finally, days after the reports, the hospital removed William Husel from patient care, and this whole time frame is 27 days. So 27 days, 3 more people died. And that delay would later become one of the most damning facts in the entire case, not against Husel, but against the hospital.
For sure.
So late November, Husel received an email from the vice president of medical affairs, and it read, quote, I need to inform you that some questions have arisen regarding dosing of medications on several patients recently. Frankly, the concerns are serious, end quote.
Mm-hmm.
Husel would later describe his reaction saying, that worried me. 5 days later, he met with hospital administrators who accused him of giving excessive fentanyl doses. I was kind of blindsided by the accusations, he said. He told them he had given, quote, comfort care to give them a pain-free death, end quote. He says administrators reassured him and told him he wasn't going to lose his job and that everything was going to be okay. On December 5th, William Husel was fired, and the hospital simultaneously notified the State Medical Board of Ohio. They also met with Franklin County Prosecutor Ron O'Brien, and within days, the hospital also notified the Ohio Boards of Pharmacy and Nursing about what was going on. And at least 20 nurses and pharmacists were quietly placed on administrative leave.
Oh, wow.
So for 6 weeks, the public knew nothing. The families of the dead knew nothing, and the silence held until January 14th of 2019, when the family of Janet Kavanaugh, the 79-year-old woman who had died in Husel's care in December of 2017, filed the first wrongful death lawsuit. That same day, MCW's CEO, Ed Lamb, released a video statement acknowledging the firings and that patients had received, quote, significantly excessive and potentially fatal doses, end quote, of the fentanyl. The dam had broken.
Oh, wow.
So then in January, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services informed MCW and its sister hospital, Mount Carmel St. Anne's that they were in immediate jeopardy of losing federal funding. Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost publicly called for Husel's medical license to be suspended immediately. And the next day, the Ohio Medical Board obliged. Ohio State Police then formally entered the investigation, and the case became a criminal matter. But that brings us to June, when the Franklin County prosecutor Ron O'Brien stood before the cameras and announced that William Husel had been charged with 25 counts of murder. He surrendered to the Columbus police just before the announcement and pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. And then he posted the $1 million bail 2 days later. O'Brien described it as one of the largest murder cases ever brought against a healthcare professional in American history, and in a city still reeling from the scope of the allegations. A single question hung over everything. How did this happen for 5 years without anyone stopping it?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
I mean, 5 years is a bit of time. Yeah. The fallout hit Mount Carmel like a wrecking ball, and it came from every direction at once. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services placed Mount Carmel officially in the immediate jeopardy, the most severe federal designation a hospital can receive. So that means it meant that the hospital was at risk of losing access to Medicare and Medicaid funding, which is the financial lifeline that keeps most hospitals in America debt-free. The Ohio Department of Health issued its own finding that Mount Carmel had failed to prevent patients from receiving an overdose. Mount Carmel submitted a corrective action plan that read like an indictment of its own failures. Verbal drug orders would be restricted. Pyxis overrides for opioids would be prohibited except in genuinely life-threatening emergencies. High-risk medication overrides would be reviewed daily. The measures that should have been in place all along were implemented only after the 35 patients were dead. And so now we're in March of 2020, and the Ohio Board of Pharmacy fined MCW $477,000. The board found that the hospital had failed to investigate any medication overrides by the nurses, and that this failure contributed to the death of the patients. All of this led to a leadership exodus. The CEO, Ed Lamb, resigned that July, and Chief Clinical Officer Richard Streck retired. Chief Pharmacy Officer Janet Whitty was gone by the following February, and 23 nurses, pharmacists, and managers were all fired, including 5 members of physician, nursing, and pharmacy leadership. All clinical leadership at Mount Carmel West was placed on administrative leave, and the hospital was institutionally gutted. MCW reported 48 nurses and pharmacists to their respective state licensing boards. The Ohio Board of Nursing issued citations to 25 nurses. 2 of them had their license suspended. Hearing examiner Jack Decker, reviewing the cases, wrote something that cut to the heart of the systematic failure. The night shift at MCW was in many ways a dysfunctional workplace. Dr. Husel evidently had little effective supervision, pharmacy review was ineffectual, and hospital policies were routinely ignored as next to irrelevant. Not one nurse, pharmacist, or hospital administrator was criminally charged. The only person who faced a jury was the doctor. There were 9 nurses and 1 pharmacist that were fired by MCW that struck back. They filed a 145-page lawsuit against the hospital. That's quite large.
Large.
Yeah. So against the hospital, against the former CEO, Ed Lamb, and Trinity Health Corporation. Their argument was actually pretty strong. So they had been fired for following a physician's prescriptions. Prescriptions, they said, did not violate the hospital policies at the time, which is correct. They alleged that the hospital had changed its medication dosage policies after the fact to create a false narrative of rogue behavior. They called the hospital's public story absurd yet attention-grabbing, a false narrative of a malevolent rogue doctor and his compliant team, and a narrative that ultimately ruined the lives and careers of numerous devoted nurses and pharmacists. Some nurses reported being confronted in public, and others said mental health providers refused to see them, which I'm like, that's kind of wild. But
what? That's crazy.
I'm like, really? I don't know. Their careers were destroyed, and they argued that the real villain wasn't the doctor or nurse, it was the hospital system that failed at every level of oversight, and then blamed the people that are at bedside. The civil lawsuits began piling up almost immediately. There were 32 wrongful death suits in total, and Mount Carmel and Trinity Health settled them by writing check after check after check. And by April 2023, the total of all these checks exceeded $40 million.
Okay, can I just say that's what Taylor Swift's wedding cost this last
40
weekend.
million?
Yeah.
Why don't I know that? Wow.
Anyway, carry on.
Anyway, well, for a hospital, 40 million is a lot. That's not really a lot to Taylor Swift, but it was a lot to the hospital, and they ultimately had to close their doors. The working class Catholic hospital that was founded way back in 1886 and served the community for over a century was shuttered.
That's so sad.
I know, its patients transferred and their halls emptied. The hospital failed to stop one doctor, and ultimately that was their demise. The trial was delayed by COVID-19, by legal maneuvering, and by the sheer complexity of the case. It was originally set for 2020 and didn't begin until February of 2022. Before the trial began, 11 of the original 25 murder charges were dismissed. Prosecutors narrowed the case to 14 counts, and those involving the highest doses, the most egregious cases, the ones they believed they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Over 7 weeks, the prosecution called 53 witnesses, which included pharmacists, nurses, family members, and medical experts. Their theory was straightforward. Husel was not providing comfort care. He was committing euthanasia. He knew exactly what those doses would do. He had trained in anesthesiology at the Cleveland Clinic. He understood the pharmacology of fentanyl better than almost anyone in the hospital, and he used that knowledge to end lives. Assistant prosecutor David Zayin drove the point home in closing arguments, saying, with his training in anesthesiology, he knew what those drugs would do. This isn't negligence. This is on purpose. Euthanizing animals with the intent to kill is fine in veterinary medicine. It's not fine in the ICU at Mount Carmel or anywhere. End quote. The prosecution argued that Husel's prestigious background was itself a weapon, that the nurses were enthralled by his Cleveland Clinic credentials and were therefore unlikely to question his orders. They painted a picture of a physician who operated without checks, who gave verbal orders to avoid electronic records, who used the Pyxis override to sidestep pharmacist review, and who ordered doses so far outside of the norm that no reasonable interpretation of comfort care could explain them. Their star expert witness was Dr. E. Wesley Ely of Vanderbilt, as we mentioned before. He testified that Husel's dosing was astounding, mind-boggling, and agreed it was out of the norm. He reviewed individual patient cases and testified that at least one patient, Joanna Belisari, was not imminently terminal and had treatment options remaining. The defense was led by Jose Baez, an attorney who had famously secured the Casey Anthony acquittal. He brought star power, media savvy, and a simple, powerful narrative that William Husel was a compassionate doctor who provided aggressive comfort care to dying patients. Every single one of the patients was terminally ill, and all of them expected to die. The families had consented to withdrawal care, and Husel's doses were high. Yes, he did acknowledge that, but they were calibrated to ensure that his patients didn't suffer. The defense called exactly one witness. Just one. And that was Dr. Joel Zivit, an anesthesiologist and critical care physician at Emory University. Zivit testified that all 14 patients died from illness and underlying medical conditions rather than fentanyl that Husel had ordered. The doses, Zivit argued, didn't kill them. Their diseases did. Baez's closing arguments went to the absence of motive, saying, common sense says Dr. Husel had no motive to harm patients. He dedicated his life to taking care of patients and saving lives, not taking them. Why would this man risk his family, career, and 17 years of trying to be a doctor to hasten someone's death or kill them?
Trying to be a doctor? Sorry. Was this
Yeah.
Okay.
The jury deliberated for 5 days before they returned their verdict. And on all the counts, they found Husel not guilty.
What?
The courtroom erupted. Husel's wife, Mariah, was overcome, sharing, quote, my cousin had to tell me to calm down because my cries were so loud, end quote. Defense co-counsel Diane Menashe said she had told Husel the night before to be with your family tonight. He has an amazing, supportive, and huge family. Just have some joy. I don't think he's allowed himself any joy for 3 years, she said. After the verdict, she went on to say, tonight he can go home, and tomorrow he wakes up and there's no goodbye. It's an incredible thing. And Bays tweeted just one word, justice, with many explanation points.
Can I just say this is so gross because the patients that died because he overdosed them that may have had a chance of survival don't get any joy. They don't get any chance to go home.
They don't get any tomorrow. They don't get any wake up. They don't get a goodbye.
Gross.
Mm-hmm. So no jury speaks publicly after a verdict, and this jury was no exception, but legal analysis pointed to several factors. First, the burden of proof. Murder requires proving intent to kill beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest standard in law. The prosecution had to prove not just that the doses were excessive, but that Husel specifically intended to end lives rather than to relieve suffering. In a medical setting, with dying patients, with families who had agreed to withdraw care, that line was extraordinarily difficult to draw. Second was the institutional failure. As plaintiff's attorney Jerry Leesburg, who represented 17 of the victims' families, later said, it was always going to be extremely hard to convince a jury to convict a physician of murder in a case where the physician's acts occurred openly over 4 years in a hospital setting where no one did anything to stop him. If what Husel was doing was so obviously criminal, why did dozens of nurses administer the drugs? Why did pharmacists verify the orders? And why did the hospital do nothing for 5 years? The jury may not have believed Husel was innocent. They may simply have believed the prosecution didn't prove that he was guilty. In May of 2022, 2 weeks after his acquittal, William Husel's medical license was officially revoked by the State Medical Board of Ohio by voluntary surrender. He would never practice medicine again. Acquittal in criminal court does not mean exoneration in life, however. Husel gave his first public interview in 2023, and the picture he painted was bleak. He was unemployed, living on food stamps and Medicaid. He had been diagnosed with PTSD and severe depression, with neurological symptoms so debilitating he said he had to concentrate on basic voluntary movements like walking. His 3 young children knew nothing of what their father had been through. Yeah, he said, when asked if everything had been taken from him, financially, mentally, emotionally, physically. They'll still make comments that I'm a serial killer, he said, a killer doctor. He maintained his innocence absolutely, saying, every day when I come to work, I wanted to do good things, he said. When he asked if he killed any of his patients, he replied, never. And when he asked if he was innocent, he answered, yes. So Husel did not go quietly. In April of 23, he filed a $20 million malicious prosecution lawsuit against Trinity Health Corporation, alleging the hospital had fabricated and amplified the case against him to deflect its own failures. He claimed Trinity had weaponized the investigation to support a restrictive religious approach to end-of-life care, a reference to the Catholic doctrine underlying Trinity's healthcare philosophy. In March of 2024, a federal judge dismissed the suit without prejudice. In June 25, so recently, Husel's defamation case against Trinity Health was dismissed by direct verdict. The judge ended it before it even reached a jury. Court documents from the defamation proceedings revealed an internal PR strategy document in which Trinity Health had characterized Husel as a villain, but the court ruled this was insufficient to support a defamation claim. The legal system, having acquitted him of murder, declined to award him damages for the consequences of being accused of it. The Husel case sits at the intersection of some of the most difficult questions in modern medicine. We asked a similar question when discussing my last case about Dr. John Bodkin Adams, and similarly when Jenna covered Harold Shipman. Where is the line between comfort care and euthanasia? And who gets to decide when a patient's life is no longer worth sustaining? What happens when the safeguards designed to prevent harm, electronic records, pharmacist review, medication limits, physician supervision, are systematically bypassed? The doctrine of double effect, a cornerstone of Catholic medical ethics, deeply relevant given Trinity Health's Catholic ownership, holds that it is ethically permissible to administer medication that may hasten death if the primary intent is alleviating pain and suffering. But Hussel's doses were 5 to 20 times above the normal range. As Medscape noted, the case exposed the largely hidden debate over whether it's accessible to hasten the death of dying patients who haven't chosen that path. That's called euthanasia, which is illegal in the United States. Dr. Lewis Nelson, chair of emergency medicine at Rutgers, offered perhaps the best assessment, saying, "Maybe this is a wake-up call that people believe this is the right thing to do. The medical community has a sense that we often prolong life unnecessarily, but a physician cannot unilaterally decide if it's time for someone to die. It sounds like he took that decision into his own hands." And Michael Cohen, founder of the Institute for Safe Medication Practices, delivered the systemic verdict, saying this is an extreme example that everyone should learn about and learn from, about what not to do. Hussel was given massive overdoses of drugs. People knew it was problematic, and someone didn't put their foot down. You've got to have a process in place to address these situations where there is disagreement over the safety of a medication order. The case also unfolded alongside a striking parallel. In 2022, almost simultaneously with Hussel's acquittal, Nashville nurse Redonda Vaught was convicted of negligent homicide for accidentally giving a patient a wrong medication. The contrast was searing and widely discussed in the medical community. Vaught accidentally killed one patient and went to prison. Hussel allegedly intentionally killed many patients and walked free. The disparity spoke volumes about how the legal system treats physicians versus nurses, intent versus accident, and the weight of institutional context.
Oh, wow. For sure.
In the end, the Hussel case leaves us with a question that no verdict, no settlement, and no regulatory action has resolved. Were those patients going to die anyway, and did William Hussel simply ensure they died without suffering? Or did he take it upon himself to decide when their lives would end, dosing them with quantities of fentanyl that no other physician in the system was ordering, and bypassing every safeguard to do it? A jury of his peers said the prosecution didn't prove murder. Mount Carmel's own investigation said at least 5 patients hadn't exhausted their options. Over $40 million in settlements said the hospital bore responsibility, and William Hussel, stripped of his license, living on food stamps, haunted by PTSD, said that he was just trying to give dying patients a pain-free death. 35 families lost someone they loved inside the ICU at Mount Carmel West. They trusted the hospital and the doctor, and they will never know, not truly and not with certainty, whether their loved ones died because their bodies gave out or because someone in a white coat pushed a syringe and decided it was time. Mount Carmel West is closed now. The building still stands in Franklinton, but the patients are gone, the ICU is dark, and the Pyxis machines that dispensed all that fentanyl have been powered down. The nurses who worked the night shift have scattered, some to other hospitals, some out of medicine entirely, some still carrying the weight of what they participated in, willingly or not. William Hussel is somewhere in Ohio, raising his children, trying to rebuild something from the wreckage of a life that was either taken from him unjustly or brought down by his own hands. And the families of those 35 patients are somewhere too, in houses where an empty chair at the dinner table tells a story that no podcast, no trial, and no settlement check can ever fully tell. This case doesn't have a clean ending, and there's no moment where the truth snaps into focus and everyone agrees on what happens. It's not black and white, which we said it before and we say it all the time. It's often not when discussing medical crimes, and honestly, it's tough. It's like not just the evidence, the testimony, the doses, the deaths, and the silence that fills the spaces between them. What we know is this: for 5 years, a doctor ordered doses of fentanyl that no one else in the hospital ordered. 35 patients died, an entire hospital's oversight system failed, and a jury said the state couldn't prove it was murder. What we believe is something each of us will have to decide for ourselves. So, what do you think?
Oh, wow, this is heavy. Well, what do I think? I think he was playing God. Whether he thought he was doing it for good or for evil, he decided that he was the expert on whether someone should live or die. And out of, I don't know, 35 people, or I forget how many, I know he was only taken to court about 14 of them, but there were.
Yeah, 35 total.
Yeah. Out of those 35 people, the hospital said, 5 of them at very least, had a chance of survival. And I think the Hippocratic Oath is where we need to go, because they vow to support life, right?
Yeah.
So this isn't about, well, I think you're going to die, I'm going to make you more comfortable. This is that whole euthanasia argument. You can't decide whether you believe in euthanasia or not. You have a set of rules to follow as a physician, because you have this ultimate authority. Everyone is looking to you to uphold the Hippocratic Oath and the regulations, right? So if you are saying, well, they're going to die anyway, I just want to make it a quick and easy passing, who are you to say that if that is not something that's legally available? And what makes me really mad is that obviously he's somebody who's super charismatic. He sounds like a narcissist. So he's got these grandiose ideas of perhaps being the savior and saving these people of the whole passing, any pain or whatever, which sounds wonderful. But if you have a chance at life, urging you on to death isn't necessarily noble, right? But you've ingratiated yourself to your nursing staff. Well, they're going to be loyal as hell. How can we blame those nurses for overriding doses when an override, first of all, is allowed? And second of all, the doctor told you to, and this is a doctor that you respect and you have a good relationship with. So I'm upset that these nurses were held accountable for this, because it was a systemic failure.
And the pharmacist too.
Okay, so
the review didn't go to them.
The pharmacist wasn't even involved.
Right.
Because they were bypassed. So the pharmacist should never be held accountable for that unless they were told. You gave an example of where a pharmacist was told, and they said, are you sure you didn't add another 0? And the physician said no. Well, you know what? In a culture of safety where you are never held accountable, there aren't any retaliation for standing up, or where it's safe to stand up and challenge a so-called authority, which is a physician over a pharmacist, maybe that person would have stood up. So it's more of a systemic issue than it is that pharmacist. Although, yeah, I feel like the pharmacist maybe had a little bit more accountability than a nurse who is always following just direct orders. A pharmacist, their area of expertise is medication. So, they should have stood up and said, you know what, this is 25 times the normal dose. But again, if a culture is you are penalized or not respected or punished in some way for standing up to a, God forbid, a physician, then that's culture of lack of safety is to blame. So,
yeah. And so for the pharmacist, okay, maybe this goes on for maybe 5 months, not 5 years.
True. It gets harder.
But they were ultimately the ones to say something. But yeah.
No, that's true. Why did it take 5 years? 5 years. So that is a system where it isn't safe to stand up to a physician. Full stop.
Yeah.
And I think if the other physicians knew that this one was doing this, perhaps something would have happened sooner and they would have held their peer accountable. But when you're in a hierarchy situation like that, it's not safe for other people that are not necessarily on the peer level to be paid attention to. So I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do feel compassion for the whole, let's ease their suffering from taking the intubation tube out and all of this, extubating a patient. But there's a reason that there are protocols for these things, Yeah.
And not going 25 times.
Yeah. This was too extreme.
And adding Dilaudid and midazolam on top of it.
What the hell was that all about? I mean, he was just playing God.
That's what makes me feel like he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. He just wanted to be powerful and play God and maybe the part of it, he believed he was like the angel of death or whatever, but it's not your job. You weren't given that. That's God's job. So step aside and follow the rules and
follow the protocols. They're there for a reason.
Exactly. What makes you so special?
By those protocols, people are gasping and it's horrible and horrific for the family. Then let's revisit the protocols. But 25 times plus additional medications, unnecessary.
Yeah.
And that's where, for me, it's like, I feel like you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. And he had plenty of opportunity to reverse course.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first time he was challenged, wow, that's a lot. Okay, maybe next time no.
And he's like, yeah, no, that's what I meant to do. I'm doing a procedure. Well, oh, okay.
You're not doing a procedure. You're urging someone's passing. And who are you to decide that they're about to pass? That's the hard part is you can't tell. And there have been surprise turnarounds. So these people who may have had a chance at life weren't given one. And I don't know if it makes a difference if someone is DNR. I don't know. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
I suppose DNR would not have been part of this category because they would not have been intubated. So.
Oh, yeah. They wouldn't have been on an vent in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, God. Well, this is fascinating.
For us to not think about that right away means that we probably should have had more coffee today.
Yeah, nice segue.
I'm usually chasing my coffee cup around the house, and I usually don't finish it. I find it, microwave it, and yeah. So if you're anything like us, mornings and or your whole day can be a little chaotic, and that's why Jenna and I love Strong Coffee Company. They take everything that you want from your morning coffee and pack it into an instant blend that is good for you. Their black fair trade instant coffee, delicious, oh, so good. And it also has 15 grams of protein, 5 grams of MCTs, and 250 milligrams of adaptogens, including ashwagandha and theanine. And the result, you guys, steady energy, improved focus, and none of that shaky, over-caffeinated freaking shakes that you can get from regular coffee when you also didn't have time to eat. If you prefer something a little creamier, they also have a latte blend that combines the organic Arabica coffee with protein, collagen, hyaluronic acid, and healthy fats to help support your body and brain throughout the day. Strong Coffee Company is all about high-quality ingredients, convenience, and creating products that fit into busy lifestyles without sacrificing flavor. If you're looking for a smarter way to fuel your day, this might be your new favorite coffee. Head over to strongcoffeecompany.com and use our code STAYSUSPICIOUS for 20% off your order.
Is it time for a medical mishap?
Sorry, I went really quick.
You did. You read, and there's a little stank to it, too. Kind of like that. Medical mishap. It's very alley cat. So the subject line of this email is the patch I forgot I was wearing. Oh, boy. It starts, "Hi, Amanda and Jenna. First of all, I have to say how much I love your podcast. I found you guys during a long commute and immediately got hooked. I love true crime. I love medicine. And somehow you managed to combine two things that make me say, just one more episode until suddenly it's midnight." Oh, thank you. I never thought I would have a medical mishap story worth sharing because honestly, I'm usually the person who follows instructions to the letter, which is why this story still makes me laugh because the thing that caused the problem was something so small that I didn't even realize I was doing it. So here goes. A few years ago, I had to get an MRI for a shoulder injury. It wasn't anything urgent. I had just been dealing with pain that wasn't improving, and my doctor wanted a better look at what was going on. I'd never had an MRI before, so I did everything they told me to. I filled out the paperwork, answered the safety questions, removed my jewelry, emptied my pockets, took off my watch, and put everything into the locker. The MRI tech went through the checklist with me, and I remember thinking, wow, they're very thorough. At the time, I thought some of the questions seemed repetitive, but once you see that giant MRI machine, you understand why they take safety so seriously. And I mean, there's also Jenna's episode on the killer MRI machines. OMG, I'm glad I didn't listen to that first. Yeah. Yeah. It's a doozy. They positioned me on the table, gave me headphones, and slid me into the scanner. The first few minutes were fine. It was loud and a little intimidating, but nothing I couldn't handle. Then I started feeling a strange sensation on my upper back. At first, I ignored it, because if you've ever had an MRI, you know that when you're inside the machine, your brain starts questioning every little sensation. You wonder if something's normal, if you're overreacting, or if you should say something. But then the sensation became more noticeable. It was a warm, almost burning feeling. Not unbearable, but definitely something that felt wrong. It was similar to when you leave a heating pad on too long and your skin starts telling you, it's time to stop. The tech's voice came through the headphones. That scared the bejesus out of me and said, You're doing great. We just have a few more minutes. I'm just imagining it. It's like when we're testing people's hearing and then they're listening for soft beeps and then we go and say, okay, now it's time to listen to speech and repeat words. And
I always tried to come through okay. Even though the mic is set to a certain volume anyway, but I'm like, okay. But yeah, same situation.
I do a bit of heavy breathing first, and then I start, and then I'm like, okay, that's a little creepy. I just did some heavy breathing. But anyway, during the MRI, the writer says, okay, I can make it. But the sensation continued to get stronger, and eventually I pressed the emergency call button. The table moved out of the scanner, and the tech immediately came over and asked where I was feeling discomfort. And I said, my upper back, pointing to the pain site. She looked confused for a moment and asked, do you have anything on your skin? Any patches? And that's when my stomach dropped because, yes, I did. I completely forgotten about it. It was a medication patch that I applied every day. It was such a normal part of my routine. My brain didn't even register it anymore. It was no different than brushing my teeth or putting on deodorant. I'd answered the MRI safety questions honestly, but somehow that tiny detail completely slipped my mind. The tech carefully removed the patch, checked my skin, and thankfully there was no serious injury. But hey, a nice little reminder that in medicine, even the smallest detail can lead to a big problem if overlooked. After everything was checked, we restarted the MRI and the rest of the scan went smoothly. I was happy with how quickly the team responded when I pushed the button. No one panicked. No one blamed me for forgetting the patch. She simply said, this is why we ask every time. And that has stuck with me, and I like to share that because as patients, I think we sometimes assume those questions are repetitive and we think, oh my gee, I answered this last time, or didn't you read my paperwork? They already know my history. Why are they asking me this? But those questions exist because healthcare is full of small details that can become very important in the right situation. And small details are easily overlooked when they're part of your regular routine. I think of the gal that wrote in about having the creamer in her coffee before blood work. Oops. But again, it's all about routine. Anywho, thank you both for creating such an entertaining and educational podcast. I love learning these behind-the-scene moments of healthcare and gaining a better understanding of why things are done the way they are. Stay curious and stay suspicious. Emily.
Emily. Those darn medication patches get you every time in the MRI machine. I'm glad you didn't have a big chain on or something after Jenna's episode.
Yeah, at least hopefully there wasn't any metal in it. But yeah, it just goes to show there's a lot of stuff we take it for. I mean, as audiologists, I wonder who goes in there with their hearing aid.
Well, I'm also thinking because
they're just,
even if you did remember your medication patch in your episode, didn't you say even some types of ink may have properties in it that can feel like your skin is burning during it? So yeah,
tattoos.
Yeah,
there's certain tattoos. Yeah.
Yikes. I've never had an MRI, but eek. Thank you, Emily, for sending in your story.
So we're not trying to scare people away from MRIs, but you're right. Disclose,
yes.
Disclose, because there are things they can do. They can wrap your tattoos. It doesn't mean you can't have an MRI. There are things they can do.
Just tell them everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing TMI in the medical world.
Do a full body scan. Stand in front of the mirror naked. Do you have a tattoo?
Yeah.
Do you have a patch
What
on?
are your markings?
It's
It's like before you go, and if anybody's ever donated plasma, and they're like so thorough, like you have to write on this piece of paper, it's like a picture of a body, and like anywhere you have a tattoo or anything, you have to like draw it on this little body.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason for that. So.
Any whoosies. Thank you, Emily.
Well, next week we have an episode about a psychiatrist at the University of Minnesota.
Oh.
This is a hometown for Amanda and I. I will say one of the titles of one of the articles, just to give you a little insight, said, I can't remember what it said exactly, but it says something like, Geezer retires before criminal charges.
Okay.
Or placed.
Well, now I know we're covering a man.
So it's a man psychiatrist at University of Minnesota, and it's quite a career of criminality. So, yeah, you're going to want to stay tuned for that.
I don't think we've covered a psychiatrist.
Ooh, I know. So just so everyone knows, we've just decided to go, because remember, we did a lot of dentists. So I've done a spreadsheet to see kind of what the medical areas we've done.
Yeah. And also,
just to make sure we're treating everyone equally.
Yeah.
Because you know what?
I really need to get off the compassionate care argument here, too.
There's nefariousness in all walks of healthcare. Yeah, we can add a psychiatrist to our inventory. So
yeah, don't want anyone to feel left out. So until then, guys, don't miss a beat. Subscribe or follow Doctoring the Truth wherever you enjoy your podcasts for stories that shock, intrigue, and educate. Trust, after all, is a delicate thing. You can text us directly on our website at doctoringthetruth@buzzsprout.com. Email us your own story ideas and comments at doctoringthetruth@gmail. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at Doctoring the Truth Podcast and Facebook at Doctoring the Truth. We're on TikTok at Doctoring the Truth and at OddPod. Don't forget to download, rate, and review so we can be sure to bring you more content next week. Until then, stay safe and stay suspicious. Goodbye.
Bye.